Right now, we're pushing the boundaries of gender in all directions. With the rise of pronouns, the pushback on two genders, with the focus on trans rights and protections, and expanding our understanding of sexuality, it can be difficult to track and understand all that's going on in the world of gender and sex. One thing I notice a lot is the resistance to the changes that are occurring. And we've got these two sides that are being created and then pitted against each other. One side says that they're on the side of science, and then the other side is presented as the group who is pushing the boundaries of gender as we know it. These are the people within the trans community, the gender non-binary community, people like myself who identify as gender fluid. I'm going to talk to you about a few myths that cause barriers and conflict for people when it comes to what I'm calling our gender revolution and this movement around sex and gender. I want to say that I definitely understand the difficulty that we're facing right now. Our understanding of gender and sex are tied to our identities, to our social roles. It's how we make meaning of ourselves and the world. And so people on both sides are really protective of their sides because that way of thinking is directly related to who we are in the world. So to start off, I think we just need to have a lot of compassion for everybody on all sides of the equation and in all places on the continuum. And I want to encourage you to open your mind and attempt to understand what this gender revolution is all about. Can you be curious about ideas and ways of living that are different than yours? Primarily because we're better when we aren't judging each other, when we're not in conflict and constant tension with each other. So let's get right into it. Myth number one. Sex and gender are the same thing. No, I really think this is at the core of many of our problems because we use sex and gender interchangeably. And when we're filling out forms, it's asking us for our gender, but what it really might be asking us for is our sex. So it's one big convoluted concept that we need to start to tease out and understand. I've got a whole video coming on the specifics of this topic, but for now, I want you to understand that there is a difference between sex and gender. Sex is a label, male or female. It's given to you at birth by a doctor. It's based on the genitals that you're born with and the chromosomes you have. It goes in your birth certificate. We think of sex as male or female, but there is variation within our bodies and our biologies, and there are people who are intersex and are born with a combination of male and female biological traits. When we think about biology, it might come to mind that males will have body hair on their face and typically more hair on their bodies. Females have a uterus, menstruate, and can give birth. But even these things aren't true for all males or all females, so just know that it's complicated. Gender refers to the socially constructed roles and behaviors and the expressions and identities of girls and women, boys and men, and then gender diverse people. One way to think about gender is as a person's self-representation as being male or female, or how that person is responded to by social institutions on the basis of their individual gender presentation. One's gender identity then is how you feel on the inside and how you live that out or express yourself to the world. Clothing, appearance, and behaviors are all ways that we express our gender identity. It's easy to confuse sex and gender. Just remember that biological or assigned sex is about biology, anatomy, and chromosomes, while gender is society's set of expectations, standards, and characteristics about how men and women are supposed to act. Why does this myth matter? Well, we've made a lot of rules and put a lot of expectations and standards on our sex. So if you're a male, you should wear pants and have short hair and probably like sports or trucks or the outdoors. And if you're female, you should wear dresses, be valued for your appearance, smell sweet, and be nurturing to your children. You can probably tell where I'm going with this, right? These stereotypes are limiting and harmful. People are saying, I don't want to live my life with these strict rules that dictate how I'm supposed to express myself. And now people are pushing back. I've often used myself as an example. I'm a biological female. I identify with the female sex, but my gender identity is much more aligned with man or masculine. Actually, I often wonder why wearing pants and having short hair is a man thing anyway. But I'm an example where one's sex doesn't align with one's gender or the way I express myself out to the world. I think it's important to remember that there is no one size fits all when it comes to gender, and that's what we're pushing back on and trying to explore. Myth number two, there are only two genders. The two most commonly known genders are boy and girl, or man and woman. The problem with this binary is when you don't fit neatly into either one of those two categories. But wait, how can you be something other than man or woman? Remember, with gender, we're talking about our expression or self-representation of being male or female. So our understanding of these categories are based on social standards and expectations. So let's just take an example. Consider someone who shops in the men's section and wears what we all agree to be man clothes, never wears a skirt or heels or lacy feminine tops. Is this a man? How about someone who plays with dolls, likes pink and floral patterns? Is that a woman? Well, what if some days you want to wear men's clothes and other days a dress? Gender is different than sex, remember? So it's more than just our body parts. Again, I'll use myself as an example. I dress in men's clothes. Right? I orient much more to masculine behaviors and expression. At the same time, I'm incredibly connected to the woman part of me who birthed my 4 children. That's why I consider myself to be gender fluid and gender non-binary. To categorize myself as a man doesn't feel right. There's a lot about me that's a woman, but if I categorize myself as a woman, that also wouldn't feel right because there's a lot about me that's man. So the idea that all of us are either exclusively man or exclusively woman is just not true. Myth number 3, non-binary and gender fluid people are just confused. This is a big no. Non-binary and gender fluid people aren't confused at all. In fact, they might perhaps be the most clear, although I'm probably a little biased. Binary and gender fluid people just live outside the binary of being exclusively man or woman in terms of how they express themselves and live out their life. Living outside the binary also relates to pronouns and wanting to be called they, because being categorized as exclusively a he or she doesn't feel like a true representation of a person's self. So when people say that non-binary and gender fluid people need to just admit who they are and know who they are, I would offer that we actually have spent a ton of time knowing exactly who we are and getting clear on that, because we recognized early on that we didn't fit into the gender stereotypical categories. So we had to do deep personal work and really explore who we are. It's not at all about being confused and not knowing if you're a man or a woman, but saying, I move between both, depending on how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and how I want to express myself. Myth number 4. Children are too young to talk about gender because they don't understand it. This is a big false. This myth is often used to prevent these conversations from happening in schools and in places where we want to be educating kids about gender. I mean, let's face it, if you walk down any toy section of Target or Walmart or any toy store, it is abundantly clear that there are certain aisles and toys that are designed and meant for boys and certain aisles and toys that are designed for and meant for girls. And these particular toys fit into the gender stereotypical norms that we have, with girls getting little kitchens to cook and dolls to nurture and boys getting trucks to smash and superheroes to save the day. Kids also hear the way they get talked to, and they notice the difference in the way that others get talked to. Girls get told how sweet they are, and boys are encouraged to take risks and be tough. Kids automatically take in this information and start to make sense of themselves and the world, directly related to their sex and their gender. Most kids recognize stereotypical gender groups like girl, woman, feminine, or boy, man, and masculine as young as 18 to 24 months old. And by the time kids are 3, they've already begun to categorize their own gender and make sense of what they're supposed to do and be based on the messages they're getting from the outside world. We started saying kids can't talk about gender when people didn't want kids to talk about non-conforming ideas of gender. But make no mistake that kids absolutely understand the idea of being a boy and a girl and what that means from a very stereotypical lens. So why is it important to debunk some of these myths? There's so much misinformation out there around gender, and a lot of it is used to instill fear in people and continue the oppression of those who go outside the binary and the gender norm. If you think about it from an organizational standpoint, wanting to create cultures of inclusivity, we have to get better at understanding the nuance around gender and how it impacts people. If you work with kids, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, kids are faced with this now. And I would think we would want to support our kids' healthy exploration of who they are so that they can live authentically in the world. I think we have to remember that just because it's unfamiliar to you and just because it's not the way you live your life doesn't make it weird or wrong. So let's move toward a little understanding and get ourselves informed so when we can have the conversations, it will allow for the deep connection that we all are wanting.